The aged janitor cleaned her hands on her worn uniform as she approached the counter. Her hands quivered ever so slightly as she retrieved her ID and paycheck. "I would like to make a withdrawal," she said with a courteous tone. The bank manager cast a quick look at her uniform, then smirked with a hint of disdain. "We don't cater to individuals of your kind," he stated icily, dismissing her with a wave. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, she grasped her check tightly, her cheeks flushed with humiliation. Just as she was about to exit, a man in a crisp suit burst in, leaning in to speak urgently with the manager. In mere moments, the whole bank came to a standstill as the janitor's real identity was unveiled. Before we dive in, please give this video a thumbs up and let us know your location in the comments. Your support enables us to share more impactful narratives. Let us commence. The aged janitor tightened the strap of her tattered bag as she entered the majestic bank. For years, she had frequented this place, effortlessly cashing her paycheck each time. Today had a unique quality to it. A subtle tension lingered in the atmosphere, stirring a sense of unease within her, yet she brushed it aside. With a firm grip on her check, she approached the counter, each step measured and deliberate. Her back throbbed from the countless years spent mopping floors, polishing desks, and ensuring that every corner of the city's largest corporate offices gleamed before the executives stepped in each morning. She had always remained silent. She had faith in the value of diligence, yet today she was on the brink of discovering that effort did not always translate to admiration. Approaching the counter, she offered a warm smile to the teller. "I would like to request a withdrawal, if you please." The young teller hardly acknowledged her presence, his gaze quickly shifting to the figure looming behind him, the branch manager. The manager, a towering figure clad in a sharp suit, advanced, surveying the janitor with unmistakable disdain. With arms crossed, he released a soft chuckle, shaking his head in amusement. "Do you really have an account with us?" he inquired, his tone laced with uncertainty. The janitor's smile disappeared. "Absolutely, without a doubt. I've been banking here for years," she replied, her voice unwavering. With a smooth motion, she placed her ID and paycheck on the counter. The manager glanced at the ID, scrutinized it, and then let out a derisive laugh. "It's not often we see someone like you making such significant withdrawals," he remarked. There was a quality in his voice that caused her heart to plummet. She had encountered condescending tones previously. Individuals frequently disregarded janitors, treating them as though they were unseen. Yet this was unlike anything else. This was far more than mere neglect. This was a profound embarrassment. "I simply need to take out my funds," she stated, maintaining a composed tone. The manager offered a sly grin and gave his head a dismissive shake. "I have my doubts about that." He pushed her ID back over the counter and gestured for security to come over. A guard stepped forward, his expression wavering with uncertainty. The custodian's fingers clenched around her paycheck. "Is there an issue?" she inquired, her tone resolute. The manager inclined their body a bit forward. "Individuals like you ought to understand their position." The words hit her with an intensity she hadn't anticipated. Is it her place? After all those years of diligent effort, meticulously saving every cent, and maintaining a trouble-free existence, this was the treatment she received? She let out a breath, her hands quivering just a bit. "I insist on speaking to someone in a higher position," the manager laughed softly. "Do you really believe anyone here would pay attention to someone in a janitorial role?" At that moment, the bank's glass door swung open, revealing a tall man clad in a sharp navy blue suit who confidently stepped inside. His gaze swept across the room, finally resting on the janitor. He dashed ahead, paying no mind to the manager at all. "Ma'am, we've been searching for you all over," he said with urgency. The bank manager's smirk vanished in a heartbeat. The other employees tensed up. The gentleman clad in the navy suit retrieved a folder and presented it to the janitor. She accepted it, her hands trembling slightly. As she opened it, the manager leaned in to catch a glimpse over her shoulder. As soon as his gaze fell upon the document, a pallor washed over him. It was a formal document of ownership. The janitor gradually lifted her gaze, her eyes locking onto the manager's astonished face. In that instant, she witnessed the precise moment he grasped the reality before him. She didn't merely possess an account here. She commanded the entire bank. The bank was enveloped in utter stillness. The manager's complexion faded as he fixed his gaze on the ownership documents held by the janitor. His lips parted just a bit, yet silence lingered in the air. The staff nearby tensed, their eyes flickering between the janitor and the impeccably dressed newcomer who had just arrived. Patrons in the lobby, who had been absorbed in their own activities just moments before, were now observing with astonished expressions. It was beyond comprehension, leaving everyone in stunned silence. The janitor gently shut the folder, her fingers curling around it as she redirected her focus to the man who had spoken to her. She was well acquainted with him. He held a prominent position among the executives in the corporate office, where she had dedicated many years of her career. He consistently regarded her with a subtle reverence, never condescending to her as many others did. "Ma'am, we have been attempting to contact you for several days." The man persisted, his tone both urgent and courteous. "The last of the paperwork has just been completed. The board gave their approval to all matters presented. This branch, along with several others, is now officially under your ownership." The janitor faced the manager, whose previously assured stance had entirely crumbled. His lips sealed tight, his hands fidgeting subtly at his sides. He struggled to comprehend the recent events, grappling with the realization that the woman he had just belittled now wielded greater influence than anyone else in the room. The custodian inhaled deeply, savoring the moment. For years, she immersed herself in the world of offices, absorbing snippets of conversations and gathering forgotten papers. Her presence often went unnoticed, allowing others to speak freely in her company. Through those conversations, she had absorbed a wealth of knowledge about business that went unnoticed by everyone around her. When an opportunity arose, a chance to invest in something greater, she seized it. It was a challenging journey, yet she had put in the effort to achieve it. All of her hard-earned savings had been invested in this endeavor. She faced the manager. "It appears there has been a misunderstanding," she remarked with a serene demeanor. "I truly belong here." The manager gulped, his confidence fading away. "I had no idea." His voice had dwindled to a mere whisper. The custodian acknowledged with a nod. "It is evident." The remaining staff remained motionless, caught in a web of uncertainty about their next move. The young teller, who had previously avoided her gaze, now appeared frantic, as if he had suddenly grasped the potential consequences of his actions on his employment. The security guard fidgeted restlessly, anticipating directions. The custodian surveyed the interior of the bank. She had always occupied the space beyond the counter, perpetually overlooked, disregarded, and undervalued. Yet today everything felt different. She pivoted to face the executive. "What comes next?" He cleared his throat with a deliberate pause. "The choice is completely yours, ma'am." She observed the manager intently, noting the beads of sweat that gathered on his forehead. He no longer wore a smirk. The arrogance he once wielded to belittle her had vanished. After a prolonged pause, she finally uttered her words. "I think this bank requires some adjustments," she stated, in effect right away. The manager recoiled. He grasped precisely what that implied. The bank stood still, enveloped in a heavy silence that bore down on all present. The custodian, no, the proprietor, remained motionless, her face a mask of ambiguity, as she observed the manager squirm with unease. The hubris that once permeated his every utterance had dissipated, giving way to an emotion more akin to trepidation. His hands trembled at his sides, his gaze flickering toward the executive, who had validated the reality. He parted his lips, ready to utter something, yet silence enveloped him. The janitor took a deep breath, clutching the folder a bit more firmly as he turned to confront the employees. A few appeared to be filled with shame, others exhibited signs of anxiety, while some were left utterly speechless. She had observed their expressions for years, yet they had never truly acknowledged her presence. To them, she was merely the one who tidied up their chaos, a figure they hardly recognized as they moved through their daily routines. She faced the manager once more. "Are you aware of the reasons behind my investment in this bank?" she inquired, her tone steady yet resolute. The manager took a deep breath and slowly shook his head. He appeared as though he was struggling to grasp the reality of the situation. Having experienced the feeling of being unseen, she went on. "I understand the feeling of being ignored, undervalued, and disregarded. There's a common misconception that your worth is tied to your occupation or appearance, leading others to believe you possess nothing of value." She stepped closer, her voice dropping just a notch. "Yet what they overlook is that individuals like myself, we observe it all." The manager's throat moved as he swallowed once more, yet he stayed quiet. "For years, I observed the way this bank interacted with individuals. I observed the dynamics of respect and neglect among individuals. I listened to the grievances, observed the discontent, and came to a realization." She inclined her head ever so slightly. This bank was not collapsing due to figures. The failure stemmed from those at the helm. A soft whisper spread among the employees. The custodian, no, the proprietor, allowed her eyes to roam over the space before returning her focus to the manager. "That is precisely why, at this very moment, you have been relieved of your duties." A sudden breath echoed through the lobby. The manager's complexion grew even more ashen. He advanced with a faltering step. "Hold on," he rasped. "Kindly, this appears to be an error. I was simply adhering to the established guidelines." She pointed out the bias you were following, her voice steady and firm. "You presumed I was out of place here. You thought I had nothing to offer. By your actions, you've demonstrated that you are unfit to hold any position of responsibility." The executive beside her gave a nod. He assured me that he would take personal responsibility for processing the necessary paperwork. "Your termination takes effect immediately." The manager's lips parted and sealed, his hands trembling uncontrollably. Yet he found himself at a loss for words. No justification could undo his actions. The janitor averted his gaze from him and directed his attention towards the other employees. She declared that this bank would be transformed from now on. Every customer will be treated with the utmost respect they rightfully deserve. Enough with the arrogance. Enough with the dismissiveness. If that is beyond your capacity, you are free to depart at this moment. A handful of employees bowed their heads, a flicker of shame crossing their faces. Yet some stood tall, resolve taking the place of their previous astonishment. The custodian, now the proprietor, cast a final glance at the man who had belittled her just moments before. Without uttering another word, she made her way to the manager's office. At this moment it belonged to her. The ex-manager remained motionless, his complexion pale, as his thoughts raced to comprehend the events that had just unfolded. Just moments before, he had experienced a sense of mastery, his power beyond dispute. Now, his whole universe had turned completely on its head. He had cast her aside, undermined her, refused her service in the very institution she now commanded. The custodian, no, the proprietor, brushed by him without a second look. With each step, she moved with purpose, her face a mask of inscrutability, as she approached the space that had once been his office. The employees surrounding her stepped aside, observing her with a blend of admiration and hesitation. A few of them appeared to be struggling to comprehend the events that had just unfolded. Some averted their gazes, as if struck by the weight of their own involvement. She approached the door and gently nudged it open. The expanse ahead matched her expectations perfectly, spacious, immaculate, featuring a substantial wooden desk and an imposing high-backed chair designed to convey authority. Yet all she perceived was a space that had, for years, been a backdrop for choices that had caused pain to individuals like herself. She entered the room, her fingers gliding over the smooth surface of the polished desk. How often had she scrubbed this exact surface? How many nights had she erased fingerprints and dust, fully aware that no one would ever recognize her existence? Yet today everything was different. She glanced back at the door where the executive remained poised. He observed the scene with keen attention, his perceptive gaze capturing each response, every nuance. Do you have any guidance for us, ma'am? He inquired. His tone conveyed respect, yet there lingered an undercurrent of admiration. She let out a slow breath. Indeed, she replied. To begin with, I require a comprehensive review of the operational practices of this branch. Each grievance, every refusal of service, every morally questionable choice. I seek to uncover every detail. The executive gave a slight nod. Got it. She shifted her attention to the other employees. Next, I would like to schedule a staff meeting without delay. For this bank to evolve, the time for change is now. A whisper circulated among the staff. While a few appeared apprehensive, others squared their shoulders, eager to demonstrate their capabilities. The previous manager has finally discovered his voice. It is not acceptable to simply, with a raised hand, she brought an immediate hush to his words. Your time here has come to an end, she declared. You dedicated years to judging others, evaluating their value solely through the lens of your own prejudices. Now you have the opportunity to understand the sensation of being overlooked. He tightened his fists, his jaw set in determination, yet remained silent. Moments later, security made their entrance. Without a moment's pause, they led him away, his objections fading into silence as he understood there was no point in continuing the debate. The employees stood in shocked silence as the doors shut behind him. The former janitor, now the proprietor, faced them once more. If you wish to contribute to something greater, she stated, her tone unwavering, then let's begin our efforts. For the first time in her life, she felt seen. She held the reins. The conference room buzzed with an electric tension as the employees assembled, their expressions a blend of unease and intrigue. Some remained in denial about the events that had unfolded, while others appeared keen to listen to the insights of the new owner. For years, they had strolled by her, their eyes glazed over, offering no more than a fleeting glance, as if she were merely a shadow in their periphery. They now gathered before her, poised and expectant, seeking guidance. She assumed her position at the head of the table, a place that had never been offered to her until now. She felt the full impact of it. She had devoted endless nights to tidying this very space, polishing these very chairs, eavesdropping on conversations about figures, gains and regulations, dialogues that never acknowledged individuals like her. She surveyed the room, her eyes lingering on each individual. This bank has been struggling, she began, her voice steady yet resolute. Not due to financial reasons, not because of economic factors, but because of how it regards individuals. For years, I have observed the way customers are overlooked, with some receiving preferential treatment while others are left in the shadows. I have observed individuals conduct themselves with a sense of superiority instead of a focus on service. That comes to a close today. A handful of individuals fidgeted awkwardly, while some averted their gaze, seemingly filled with embarrassment. I chose to invest in this bank due to my belief in its potential for improvement. I envision it as a space where individuals are appreciated for who they are, rather than merely assessed by their looks or financial status. If you wish to be involved in that, then remain. However, if you find it difficult to embrace the impending change, you are welcome to depart. A soft whisper spread across the room. A few employees shared furtive looks, contemplating their choices, yet none took a stand. She announced that, effective immediately, new policies are being put into place. It's time to stop rejecting individuals without justification. Customers should no longer be treated based on assumptions. Every individual who enters those doors is worthy of respect. This applies to employees too. Your contributions here are truly appreciated. Fear has been vanquished, and intimidation from management is a thing of the past. The executive acknowledged her words with a nod, jotting down notes as she articulated her thoughts. An employee paused momentarily before lifting a hand. "Excuse me, what can you tell me about him?" she inquired, pointing to the previous manager who had just been led away. "He has made his decision," she stated plainly. "He exhibited a style of leadership that was entirely unsuitable for this bank. If anyone else shares his sentiments, now is the moment to determine your place in this space." Once more, The room was enveloped in silence. Gradually, one after another, the employees began to nod in agreement. Some even adjusted their posture, as if perceiving their environment in a new light for the very first time. She let out a breath. This is merely the start. She understood that transformation would take time. For the first time, she found herself not merely tidying up after others. She was crafting a fresh vision, an improved reality. This time, she would ensure that no one like her would ever be overlooked again. As the meeting concluded, employees gradually made their way out of the conference room, their expressions a mix of uncertainty and hope. Soft murmurs filled the air, accompanied by furtive glances, as they grappled with the sudden change in authority. Some moved with a fresh sense of determination, as if they were finally aware that their roles were on the brink of transformation, whether for good or ill, shaped by their perspective. She lingered in her seat for a moment, observing their departure. The burden of responsibility rested upon her shoulders, more substantial than she had anticipated. She had triumphed in the battle, yet the struggle for transformation was merely commencing. A bank cannot be transformed in the blink of an eye. Building trust is a gradual process. The policies require a complete overhaul. Above all, there needed to be a transformation in people's perspectives. The executive, who had stood by her since she disclosed her ownership, moved closer. "You managed that quite adeptly," he remarked, his face betraying no emotion. "Did I really?" she inquired, releasing a breath. "Not everyone will embrace this. There will be resistance from some. Some will choose to leave." He acknowledged that it was indeed true. Yet those who truly belong will remain. Those who have faith in your vision. She gave a slight nod. "Let us begin our task." The following days unfolded in a flurry of activity. All files underwent thorough examination. Each policy examined closely. Long-standing grievances that had been overlooked for years were finally acknowledged. She paid attention to the voices of employees who had experienced a sense of being unheard under the previous management. She engaged with customers who had been dismissed for reasons unrelated to their financial status. Amidst everything, she sensed a transformation, not only within the institution but also within her own being. One afternoon, while strolling through the main lobby, she observed an elderly man pausing at the entrance, uncertainty etched on his face. His attire was tattered, his hands quivering ever so slightly as he clutched a small envelope. He glanced around with unease, as though anticipating rejection. She acknowledged that moment of doubt. She had experienced it herself numerous times in the past. With a warm smile, she made her way towards him. "How can I assist you today?" The man blinked in astonishment, then nodded deliberately. I simply need to cash this check," he said with a hint of uncertainty. "However, I have encountered difficulties in the past. They mentioned that my account was insufficiently sized." "Not anymore," she replied softly. "Join me on this journey." She took it upon herself to guide him to the counter, where a teller, one who had participated in the meeting and remained, welcomed the man with a warm smile and efficiently handled his request. The old man's eyes sparkled with appreciation as he held the money tightly in his grasp. "Thank you," he murmured. "I have never been treated this way by anyone before." A lump formed in her throat. This was the reason for her struggle. This was the reason she had persevered. Not for dominance, not for retribution, but for instances like this. For the first time, she was more than the overlooked janitor. She was the force that had transformed everything, and her journey was only beginning.